two strings. For example, word one is ABC and word two is PQR. We have to merge these two strings and in which the characters alternate. For example, merge string would look like first we'll be appending A, then P, then B, then Q, then C, then R. So that means the characters are alternating. So if you would like to write these characters, right, like in the form of an array, so the word one would look like A, B, C, and word two would look like P, Q, R. So imagine we have two pointers. So in the word one, we have the pointer which starts with A, and similarly we have a pointer in word two, right, which starts with P. So the merge string. So the merge string would initially be an empty string. So we are just for the sake of understanding, we are visualizing them as an array. So the merge string is initially empty. So first what we have to do is, first we have to take this character A, we have to place it in the merge string, right? And we have to increment this pointer. Then we have to take this character P, right? And we have to increment this pointer. Then we have to repeat the process. Like now, since we are appending these, right? So what we'll have to do is first we'll have to append D, then we'll have to append Q, and we'll have to uh, increment these pointers together. So we'll increment this pointer and we will increment this pointer, and we will append the characters first C, then R, and then we'll again increment the pointer, but at this time, since we have incremented the pointer has gone out of the string. That means we have no more characters to merge. But for example, if one string is longer than the other one, in that case, what we have to do is, so all the remaining characters we have to directly add it in the merge string. So if the example looks like, if I say the example looks like, for example, word one is E, B, C, D, E, F, and word two is P, Q, R. So we keep merging these two strings alternatively as long as we can, and we can merge these two strings until the length of the minimum of these two strings. So the word two is minimum. Word two has minimum length among these two strings. So we will do what? Alternate them. First, it would be A, then P, then B, then Q, then C, then R. And now, word one has some remaining characters. So we'll just take those characters and we'll append it to the merge string. So first we see an easy variant. For example, if the length of both the strings is equal, so it is very easy for us. What we do is we can just simply try to follow, right? And let's say, so the case one is length of both the strings is same, and let's say it is w, right? So we would write a loop that would go from index 0 to w minus 1, which is the end index of the string, right? So we'll be writing a for loop that is going from index 0 to index w minus 1. So I is less than w, which indicates that the loop is going from 0 to w minus 1, and we're incrementing it. And initially, since the merge string was initialized to empty string, right, was empty string. So what we simply have to do is first we have to append the character from the first string, then append the character from the second string. So merge string plus is equal to, first we'll pick the character from the first word, and then we'll pick the character from the second word, right? So our problem becomes easier if the length of both the strings are equal. But in case the length is not equal, right? Even in that case, what we can do is, for example, let's say the case 2 in which length of the strings are not equal, right? For example, let's say word1 dot length is equal to w1 and word2 dot length is equal to w2, right? So even in this scenario, we have to keep alternating the characters until the minimum length. For example, so let's say word1 is equal to A, B, C, D, E, F, and word2 is P, Q, R. So we can see the here the length is 6 and here the length is 3. So we have to keep alternating the characters, right? Until the length 3, right? Because the minimum length among these two strings is 3. So we will be writing a for loop, right? That will go from index 0 to the minimum length. So minimum of these two words minus 1. Why minus 1? Because for example, if you see this second string, right? So its length is 3, but the indexes goes from 0 to 2. That is why we have written the minus 1. So we would first be writing for loop in which the counter variable would go from 0 to the minimum of w1 and w2 minus 1, right? And we'll keep on appending it to the merge string. So the merge string would look like, first we'll append the character from the first word, and then we'll append the character from second word. Now we have alternated the characters. Now the problem that we have is that we have some remaining characters in the word one that we would like to append it to the merge string. So, but for that we need to first know what is the index of this character D, right? Because we have merged these first three characters of each word, right? Now we want to determine the index of the character D. So we can see that this for loop, right? This for loop is going from 0 to minimum of W1 and W2 minus 1, right? So for example, if word 1, if the length of the word 1 is greater than the length of word 2, what does it indicates? It indicates that word 1 has remaining characters, right? And if in another scenario, the length of the word 2 is greater than the length of word 1, that would indicate that word 2 has remaining characters, right? So we have to, so in this particular case, we have to append the remaining characters in the merge string. So word one and the remaining characters, right? So we need to find the start index and the end index for the merging process. So the end index we know it will be word one dot length minus one, right? We need to determine what will be the start index. So what we can see is that this for loop went from 0 to minimum of word 1 and word 2 minus 1. That means if this is a scenario, right? If the length of the word 1 is greater than word 2, right? That means this upper for loop went from index 0 to word 2 minus 1. Because why did? Because we can see that we are saying that it went from minimum of word 1 and word 2. And since word 1, the length of word 1 is greater than the length of word 2, so this for loop, so this value would be w2, right? So this for loop went from this. So the next index would be what? The next index would be W2. Next index would be nothing but W2. Similarly, in case of uh, other scenario, we have to append the remaining characters of word 2, right? And even in this case, what would be the AND index? The AND index would be word2 dot length minus 1. And what would be the start index? Start index would be the upper for loop, right? The for loop went from index 0 to minimum of W1, W2 minus 1. And what is the minimum of W1 and W2 in this particular case? Since W2 is greater than W1, so the minimum of W1 and W2 would be W1, right? So we have already added these many characters, right? From 0 to W1 minus 1. So what would be the next index in the sequence? The next index in this particular sequence would be W1 because W1 follows W1 minus 1. So this would be our final code. First, we have to write this for loop, right? That will go from the index 0 to the minimum of the length of the words minus 1, right? We'll keep on adding the characters alternatively. And then we have to merge, then we have to append the remaining characters in the merge string. For that, we have to identify the start index and the end index of the remaining characters. If the length of the word 1 is greater than word 2, that means that word 1 has some remaining characters that need to be appended. And if the case is different, that means the length of the word 2 is greater than word 1. That would indicate that word 2 has some remaining characters that we need to append to the merge string. And how do we determine the start index and the end index for the remaining characters? We have to see that how many characters that we have already merged, right? We have merged in this particular case, uh, we have already added characters from this particular, from starting from 0 to W2 minus 1, right? And so the next uh, index that would follow would be W2 and index of the word would be W1 minus 1. Why W1? Because we are adding the characters of the W1, right?